أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم وقاسب حقوقهم ومناقبهم وفضائلهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to question time. First question time after the month of Ramadan. We begin again to look into some of the spurious arguments, some of the questions and doubts that are raised upon upon Islam and upon Islamic heritage, upon Islamic values and principles. Recently we had the date of the destruction of Baqi, Jannatul Baqi, which is one of the first, or one of the major major graveyards in Medina, in which it tend to hold many graves of the family of the Prophet and of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Four Shia Imams are buried there, the wife of Prophet is buried there, and many great personalities such as Ummul Baneen, Fatima bint Asad, and many of the Ashab are buried there as well. Now, the point of discussion is, or the question is, that why Shias or why lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, or why even Sunnis, because this practice of visitation of graves, which is ziyarat, was overwhelmingly practiced and is also practiced by all Muslims. There is ijma on this. Now we will look into the question. We'll begin with the sources, where it started and why it is prohibited now by some of the Wahhabis, for example, particularly when we go to Umrah or Hajj or Ziyarat, we find that these those who are of the Wahhabi ideology or Wahhabi understanding, they tend to attack, or they tend to say it's bid'ah and it's innovation. So now let's look at the visitation of shrines and the value of visitation of shrines, and some of the spurious arguments that are raised against the visitation of shrines or of qubur, of graves. Now, the first recording of this we find by Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah in Minhaj Sunnah, volume number 2, page number 441, he says that all of the narrations in regards to the visitation of graves that have come from the Prophet are weak, all of them, and they are weak, and they are forced, or they are sort of like jali, they are sort of made up riwayat, all. So whether he means that whether it be in terms of it being recommended, mustahab, to go for ziyarat, or haram to go for ziyarat, not to go for ziyarat, both are weak according to Ibn Taymiyyah. So on that basis, in the book At-Tawassulul Wasila, he clearly says that all narrations in regards to the visitation of graves are weak and cannot be trusted. Therefore, those who are the true followers of the Sunnah have not quoted these hadiths, and therefore he kind of says that it should not be visited. He criticizes it, visitation of it. In another place, he says in At-Tawassul al-Wasila, same book, previously he said that they are all weak. Then he says in another place that it's all zaif, but it is lies, to really visit this. Abdul Aziz bin Baz, another Sunni scholar, in the book called Majmu' Fatawa bin Baz, he says that to visit the graves while facing trouble, trials and tributes is not allowed. However, you can visit the graves if one takes ibrat, one takes lesson from. So you can visit the grave, and it is mustahab to really do so if one takes a lesson from it. Once take a lesson from it. Ibrat, once Bin Baz have said that. Now, Ibn Taymiyyah once again have clearly mentioned that it's all weak and it is haram to do so, and it is bid'ah. Then later on, this fatwa of Ibn Taymiyyah, based on weak hadith once again, became the source of Abdul Wahhab, who was the founder of the Wahhabi school of thought. And as he had the power with the Al Saud to basically execute this fatwa of Ibn Taymiyyah, he restricted it, because the whole of that region came under the power of Saudis. And Abdul Wahhab, who was the scholar who followed Ibn Taymiyyah thought, he supported the Saudis, and they together sort of discreted the shrines of the companions of the wife and of Ahl Bayt alayhimus salam. In 1800, early 1800, 1806, that was the time where they destroyed the domes, that beautiful domes that were there on top of the graves of the wife of the Prophet, of the children and the grandchildren of the Prophet in Jannatul Baqi, and in many other places in Saudi Arabia, and Jannatul Mawla, and many other saints' graves and shrines were destroyed. As we see today, the ISIS tend to do the same thing. The terrorists, they tend to destroy graves, discrete the graves, destroy the mosque. One of the most traditional mosques in Mosul, which was recently destroyed as well. So it's the same mentality, same thought, which is supported once again at that time in 17th century. The Saudi kingdom, who came to power, they supported the same thought at that time, and we see similarities today. You have Saudi, rich and royals, and those who are sort of got lots of money. They are supporting and funding these terrorist ISIS groups, Al-Qaeda and many more. And all this terrorist activity that we find in England or in America, they were more Saudis. 9/11, there were 17 of them. Those who hijacked and who destroyed were Saudis. It's such a shame that today, when we look at the ban for Muslims, Saudi is not included in that, and many of those terrorists who destroyed the Twin Towers were Saudis. It's a bit strange. Anyway, so here we going back onto the ziyarat of qubur, there has been a concern upon visiting the graves of the awliya. The first one to criticize this was Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah was the first one. Now, the point is, who is Ibn Taymiyyah? We got to refer to the Quran. We got to look at the Sunnah. We got to look at the ijma of the Muslims. Ibn Taymiyyah is one person. We don't follow Ibn Taymiyyah. We follow the Quran. We follow the Hadith of Rasul. We follow the Sirah Rasul, the Sunnah of Rasul, right? And the Sunnah of the Ashab of Rasul, right? That's what we follow. Or for Ahl Sunnah, for example, they follow the Khulafai Rashidun, what they have done, right? So now let's focus upon the adillah, upon the proofs of visitation of graves which is allowed in the Quran, which is allowed in the Sunnah of Rasul and in the Seerah and Sunnah of the Ashab, and also the Khulafa Rashidun. They have that Sunnah. I will mention it here now. Now, the first dalil, the first proof in regards to the visitation of graves, Islam is a deen fitri. It's a religion of intrinsic nature of man. It's based upon fitrat insani. It's based upon the fitra of man, and its commands, the ahkam in Islam is once again based on the fitrat of insan, right? Now, when we look around in the history of mankind, we find that visitation of grave was something which was practiced from the time where the traces of Adam or insan or a human being is recorded by the anthropologist. The anthropologists, when they record that human species and the traces of human species on earth, they record the visitation or marking of graves and visitation of it. Leave aside that, in animals, elephant graveyard, don't we hear that term? Birds. I remember there used to be two birds who used to come in our backyard. They were pigeons, right? Every time we used to see them there, 2, 3 sometimes, right? And all of a sudden, one of them died in our own backyard. So I buried that bird in the backyard itself. And then I used to see that, the bird would come and stand right there on the place I have buried. The other bird, the pigeon, would come there and visit. I mean, in animals, it's something natural that you have a grave of a loved one and you go there. So it is in the nature. And Islam never goes against the nature of man. It allows that. It makes it halal for you some way or the other. It never said never eat meat. It says eat it in this fashion. That's what Islam kind of rectifies it, makes it, proper for you, which is beneficial for you, because it is your natural instinct. Islam never says celibate. Do not get married. If you want to be spiritual, do not have children, like Christian monks. Islam doesn't say that. Islam says, okay, you want to get married? There's a way of doing it. And at the same time, you could be spiritual as well. You could be religious as well. You could be waliullah as well. Not that you have to be a saint. You have to be celibate. You have to castrate, your testicles in order that you become spiritual. No, Islam doesn't say that. Islam is deen fitri. It is based on the nature of insan. Insan, human being, likes to do it. Now, as he likes to do it, Islam provides a proper way, Sharia. That's why it's called Sharia. Islam gives you the way, the path to perform it, right? So number one dalil is the fitrat insan. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. It is this nafs, وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا ilham, فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Both good and evil is been inspired by God. Now, number two, the proof of the Quran in regards to the visitation of grave. There is a verse in the Quran, Surah Tawbah, verse number 89. The Quran mentions to the Prophet, O Prophet, La taqum ala qabrihi, do not stand near the graves of the munafiqeen. The Quran is saying, O Prophet, do not stand, do not visit, do not go near the graves of the munafiqeen. Obviously, standing at the grave of the munafiqeen is a visitation. You go there and you stand there. You have your presence there, right? It's called visitation, right? Do not stand near the grave of the munafiqeen. What is the opposite? O Prophet, you can stand, you can visit, in brackets, the grave of the mu'mineen. It says, do not do this, grave of the munafiqeen. But if it was supposed to be that, do not stand near the grave of the munafiqeen wa mu'mineen, or do not stand at the grave, la taqum ala qabrih, mutlaqan, absolute law should be there, instruction should be there from the Quran, saying that do not stand, do not visit graves, clear instruction in the Quran. But the Quran says, do not stand at the grave of the munafiqeen. The point is like this: Man ja'akum fasiq fatabayyanu. There's a verse in the Quran. When a fasiq, when a corrupt person comes and give news to you, fatabayyanu. You got to research that news. What is the opposite? If a good person, if a adil person, if a mu'min person, he comes and he gives news to you, accept it. No need to investigate. Otherwise the Quran would have told you, right? The law that we are extracting on the basis of the Quran is that when a fasiq comes and give news to you, fatabayyanu, you got to research about that news, whether it is correct or wrong. But what is the hidden message here? What is the ishara and indication here? Right? Is the Quran is saying that, okay, if the fasiq, if the corrupt person brings news to you, research. But if the mu'min person brings news to you, you don't need to research. O Prophet, do not stand near the grave, at the grave of the munafiqeen. O Prophet, you can stand at the grave of the mu'mineen. That's what the answer is, that we extract from the Quran. So Quran have not prohibited visitation and standing near the graves, right? Now, there's another proof of the Quran in regards to إِذْ يَتَنَازَعُونَ بَيْنَهُمْ أَمْرُهُمْ فَقَالُوا ابْنُهُ عَلَيْهِمْ بُنْيَانًا رَبُّهُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِهِمْ قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا عَلَى أَمْرِهِمْ لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. Surah Kahf, verse number 21. It says that you should make a masjid on top of the place where they are sleeping. This is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To make a dome, to make a masjid, not a dome. I mean, dome, it doesn't say that. Dome is the construction and the art, of forming domes is in its own, discussion, not the dome, but the masjid. Make a masjid, it is saying, on top of the place where they are sleeping. So some sort of structure, some sort of place of worship, so that people, when you make masjid, obviously people will go to that and worship there and pray there. One of the things that has been mentioned, unfortunately, which is misrepresented in regards to some Muslim, Sunni Muslim, and also Shia faith and Sufi faith, is that the Wahhabis, they say that Shias, they worship the grave. No, we worship Allah. We face in the direction of Kaaba. We don't do sajda to the graves. No Muslim does sajda to the grave. That is Shia phobia. That is graveophobia. That is wrong. The same way as Islamophobia we have today, that is Shia phobia. That is wrong. The media is afraid of Islam, they make Islamophobia. The Islam is afraid of Shia ideology, they make Shia phobia, right? So That is wrong. No Shia worship the graves. No Shia does sajda to the grave. I mean, this was so overwhelmingly propagated that even the BBC here, Channel 4, I think it was, I'm not sure which one it was, I don't want to take the name, one of the channel which is quite renowned in UK, in one of the documentary shows that Shias worship grave. That is wrong. That really shows that how misinformed they are. I'm giving the benefit of doubt, saying misinformed they are. Now, in regards to this, we find that very clear, it's been advised that they should build a masjid on top of the Ashab-e-Kahf. Looks like a mazar, like a marqat, where people continuously go there and visit there, right? Now let's look at the hadith. So we looked at the Quran. Now look at the hadith in regards to the visitation of grave. Now, according to Bin Baz and according to other Sunni scholars, they say that yes, you can visit the grave. You can visit the grave if you want to take lesson from the grave. What do we do when we go visit the graves? We take lesson from. We learn from the sacrifice of what they have done, the awliya have done, who they were and what they were. And we remember God. We remember the hereafter. On marhale awwal, on the first level, obviously paying tribute and respect to these awliya is great reward. We are not talking about that right now. We are talking about the understanding of Bin Baz or some of the sort of strict Sunni scholars who say that you should not, it is bid'ah to visit the grave, but you can visit, it is istihbab, mustahab, to visit if one is taking lesson from ibrat. So when the Sunnis, when Muslims visit the graves, they are taking lesson from the awliya. When you go visit Rumi, when you go visit, they remember, who this man was and what he talked about God, his sacrifice, how great he was, what a companion he was of the Prophet. Abu Zar, what a companion he was. Hazrat Hamza, lion, how he fought. We remember that, right? Okay, we recite Quran. So that hadith very clear for the that sort of Bin Baz or Ibn Taymiyyah as well type of thought ideology. Now, the technical proof in regards to the visitation of grave, I will mention on 3 different levels, right? The first level is known as the marhale ibaha, which means that the level of being allowed, mubah. That's first level. And continuation of this visitation of grave as mubah. So there were certain practices in Islam which was practiced even before Islam. There are certain practices in Islam today that were practiced before Islam as well. What Islam did was that these practices continued to be practiced but with a new adaptation. For example, Hajj. Hajj was a practice which was carried out even before Islam. Hajj in the month of Dhul Hijjah was a practice which was carried out even before Islam. They would come, tawaf of Kaaba, they will do the tawaf of Kaaba, for example. This was practiced before, right? Even before Islam. Now, how it was practiced? For example, it was monopolized. There was a monopoly of these Arabs. They said that whoever is coming to Mecca from outside Mecca, when they come, they should buy the ihram from Mecca. They cannot buy the ihram from outside Mecca. they should buy the ihram from Makkah, so that business, money should be brought to Makkah only, and those who are in Makkah, they should benefit from this, right? And those who cannot afford to buy the ihram, they should do the tawaf naked, without any clothes. They have to wear ihram. See, ihram, hukm ihram, even today we have that, right? At that time also ihram was there. But the condition of the ignorant Arabs, of the Arab Jahiliyyah, were that they should buy the ihram from Makkah itself. They cannot bring ihram from outside. So many people would come to Hajj, but they cannot afford to buy the ihram. Perhaps it was expensive, or whatever the reason may be, right? Now, as they were unable to do so, they were doing tawaf naked. So now the point I'm trying to make here is that visitation of graves was something which was practiced before as well, before Islam, just like how tawaf of Kaaba was practiced before as well. What Islam did was that it provided with an adaptation to the rule of tawaf of Kaaba, and then they carried out that rule. So the same way, the visitation of grave, it was a habit of the Arabs, of the people in the past before Islam, but they used to visit the grave by sacrifices, by putting the blood of the animals, or by doing sajda to the grave, for example, right? But Islam said no sajda to the grave, no putting of blood to the grave, no sacrifices, right? Islam kind of adapted to the rule of visitation of grave, adapted to it and make it mubah, make it someone that they should practice, because it is in the fitrah of insan, like as we said, right? Now, so one, it allowed, that's first marhala, that's the first level, it's mubah. Number two, it kind of provided with an adaptation. Number two, that is very important as well. We are saying that yes, you don't go to grave and worship and do sajda to grave. No, we are not saying that, right? It's providing with an adaptation of it, right? And number three, which is once again, which comes from Anas ibn Malik, a Sunni scholar, Sunni Maslak, in Mustadrak al-Hakim, Mustadrak Hakim, volume number 1, page number 375. It quotes the Prophet, and it says that Prophet is saying, I am nahiyatukum an ziyarat al-qubur fazuruha fa innaha tadhakkarkum al-maut. I prohibit you from visitation of grave. Anas bin Malik is saying, quoting the Prophet, prohibit you from visiting the grave, wali, but visit the grave in order that you remember death. So Prophet is allowing you to visit the grave. He's saying just don't go just visit the grave like a picnic or something like that, or like a worship. Visit, no problem visiting, but you should remember the hereafter. That's what we do. When we go to the grave, we recite ziyarat, we remember the hereafter, how you died, and so on and so forth. We don't go there and merrymaking, have fun, for example. Anas, in another hadith, he says, for sure, inni nahitakum an ziyarat al-qubur, faman sha'a an yazuru qabran, falyazur, fa innahu yuraqqul qalb. Right? I prohibit you to not to visit the grave, but faman sha'a, whoever desires or wishes to visit the grave, فَإِنَّهُ يُرَقَّوْ الْقَلْبِ. The qalb, the heart should become raqiq, become soft. وَيَدْمَعَ الْعَيْنِ, and the eye should cry. وَيُذَكِّرُ الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا تَقُولُ هَجْرًا. And we should remember the akhirah, and do not speak something ill, something sort of pointless when you are visiting the grave. Perhaps the Arabs of that time would go there, will do poetry, will speak this and that and the other, But the Prophet is saying that you're allowed to visit. You're not allowed to visit, but if you visit the grave, your heart should become raqiq. There should be some riqqat qalb. And you should cry. And you should remember the akhirah. Look, this is from Anas bin Malik, who was a Sunni Maslak, and this also is Masnad Ahmad. The book is a Sunni book, Masnad Ahmad, volume number 3, page number 235. And also in Mustadrak Hakim, you have the same hadith as well. So you have Abu Huraira from the Prophet. He says, and this is from Ahwal al-Qubur, this book. Abu Huraira mentions from the Prophet that ما من عبد يمر على قبره رجل مسلم يعرفه في الدنيا فيسلم عليه إلا عرفه ورد عليه السلام. There isn't any person who visits the grave of a Muslim who knows him in the dunya and gives salams illa arafu, and he waradda salam, and he returns the salam back. A Muslim, Abu Huraira, visits the grave. The Prophet have said he gives salams, and salam is given back by that Muslim who is in the grave. Right. Hadith of the Prophet. We talked about the Quran, we are talking about the hadith. The wife of the Prophet, Hazrat Aisha, from the Prophet says that there isn't any that who does the ziyarat of a brother, a mu'min who sits there on the grave and he have that love with that mu'min and gives salams and he gets the jawab of the salam till he leaves the grave. From Hazrat Aisha, this hadith is from. It's been mentioned that from Hakim and Neshapuri, from the book of Mustadrak Hakim, Prophet visited the grave. Who quotes that? Prophet visited the grave with 1,000 malaika, and whoever was near him, they started crying. Prophet visiting the grave of the mother with 1,000 malaika. Hakim and Neshapuri, Mustadrak Hakim. This book is from Ahl Sunnah. Visitation of grave. Talhat ibn Ubaidullah, we were with Rasulullah and we left Medina in order to do the ziyarat of Shuhada. And we reached to Harra Waqim, and we saw the grave. We visited the grave. And I said, Ya Rasulullah, are these grave of our brothers? The Prophet replied, these are the grave of our companions. When he reached the grave of the Shuhada, he said, these are the grave of our brothers. So Prophet visiting with Ibn Ubaidullah. Muslim quotes from Aisha, Hazrat Aisha, from the Prophet. The Prophet last nights would go towards the Baqi, and to Ahl Baqi he would say, Assalamu alaikum dara qawm al-mu'mineen. He would give salams. This is from Sahih Muslim. Sahih Muslim, volume number 2. He would go and give salams to that. And then another hadith, Ibn Abi Shahbi, who quotes the Prophet, he would go to the Shuhada of Ahad, the Prophet, and when he goes there, he would say, Assalamu alaikum bima sabartum fa ni'ma aqba ad-dar. He would give salams. This is from Mustadrak Hakim again. Now, in regards to the third issue, which is the seerah, which is the habit of the awliya. Fatimatu Zahra Salamullah alayha, from Hakim and Naishapuri, in the book of Hakim and Naishapuri, mentions that in the time of the father, Hazrat Fatima, during the time of the father, would visit the grave of Hazrat Hamza. And she would cry there and she would pray there. This is Hazrat Fatima, quoted by Hakim and Naishapuri. Muhibbuddin Tabari, in the book Riyadun Nadar, mentions that, Muhibbuddin Tabari mentions that, I was in a trip with Umar, with Hazrat Umar, the Khalifa, the second Caliph. I was in a trip with the second Caliph, Umar, and with his ashab. And in the way, we met an old man who asked for help. And then when returning, we inquired about this man who asked for help when we were going, apparently. And they said that he died. When they said he died, the second caliph quickly, Muhibbuddin Tabari mentions this, quickly he ran towards the grave. Quickly he went towards the grave. And then he prayed there. And then he took the grave in his arms. And then he cried. This is the second Khalifa who have done. Who is Ibn Taymiyyah? Who are Wahhabis to really prohibit? Huh? Right? Now, Imam Ali alayhi salam, another fourth Khalifas for the Muslims and first Imams for the Shias, the son-in-law of the Prophet, the cousin of the Prophet, mentions that this book is from Asad al-Ghabih, volume number 2. While returning from Siffin, he heard the news of Khabbab ibn Arth, who was one of the earliers who accepted Islam. He heard while returning from Siffin that he died. Amirul Mu'mineen came to the grave of this companion, of this sort of, Sabiqeen, those who accepted Islam. Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah, after the wafat of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, would come to the grave and would cry at the grave of Imam Hassan. And then, we have ila mashallah riwayat in regards to the grave of Imam Hussein and the reward and so on and so forth. Obviously, we have looked at this Quran, the Sunnah, of the Prophet and the Ashab and the Khulafa who have visited the grave, have cried and have recited prayers. Prayer towards the Kaaba, not to the grave. Number 4 is the ijma of Muslimin. Ulama of Islam from all different sects regards that visitation, that ziyarat of qubur, particularly the graves of Anbiya and the righteous one and the awliya and the saints, that it is mustahab, that it is recommended. The ijma of all Muslims, the ijma of all ulama, or all the scholars, this is from Al-Mawahib Al-Diniyah and Minhaj Al-Muhammadiyah. These are the book that really talks about the ijma of all Muslims in regards to the visitation of grave. Then you have many fatawa of the great ulama of Islam. For example, Shafi'i, who talks about visitation of grave, Muhammad ibn Sharabaini, who talks about it, right? And Muhammad ibn Nawawi, who talks about it, Ibn Abedin, who talks about it, Abu Bakr Kashani, who talks about it. All of these fatawa, Ibn Hazm, they are all scholars, Muslim scholars from Ahl Sunnah, Ahl Tashi. They all talk about visitation of the grave of the Prophet. Obviously, because there's a lot of asar, effects, mustahabba that comes about. Inshallah, we'll look at it. So we attended to the question today in regards to the visitation of graves and the value of it and the importance of it and how it is allowed. I think the value and the importance and the effect of visitation of grave in the riwayat in the Quran, we'll look at it in our next week program. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you again. And our condemnation in the end in regards to the discretion and destruction of the shrines, particularly Jannatul Baqi, in 1806 or so, and even after that, and many shrines, all shrines after which were demolished and rebuilt thanks to the lovers of the awliya and Ahl Bayt, to Muslims, to followers of Deen Muhammadi, Islam Muhammadi, really, that they were rebuilt. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Jannatul Baqi inshallah be rebuilt soon, and a place where one could peacefully go and worship, do dua, inshallah, perform ibadat in these unique and special places, which are the place of wa mukhtaliful malaika. Angels come and go. The point is to really see that something we take from these graves. We take something from this grave. That's why people get scared and afraid. What are we taking? We are taking life. We are taking Islam. We are learning the lesson of sacrifice from the grave of the awliya. And that is what shaitan is afraid of. That is what those who wants to give a perverted name to Islam and stop that Islam, which is true Islam, of sacrifice, of humanity, of sharing, of caring, that we learn from the graves of the awliya. How beautiful they were, how strong they were in their knowledge, in their behavior, in the Quran, in the practice of the Sunnah. So when we go visit their graves, when we do ziyarat, we remember all of this and we try to make ourselves like them. But those who doesn't want this true Islam, it will stop us from visitation by destroying the grave, by not allowing us to do this great ibadat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us strength and tawfiq that we take lesson from, and give us tawfiq that we do the ziyarat of tamam awliya wa anbiya and increase our ma'rifat day by day of these anbiya and awliya, and the ma'rifat of tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the true understanding of tawheed through these awliya. Subhanallahi amma yusifun, as it says, illa ibadaka mukhlasin, except those who are the mukhlasin. These are the graves of the mukhlasin, those who have introduced tawheed, those who have taught us what tawheed and what Islam is. غفر الله لنا ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.